Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms video. Today we going to figure out if Guan Yu still a good investment in 2022, guys. Right? So Guan Yu is definitely one of my favorite commanders. Like overall, right? Not just for infantry. It's just like overall one of my favorite commanders. So I am very excited to talk about him today and to tell you guys what I think about him. So as usual, we go break him down into multiple categories here: DPS, utility, tankiness, mobility, Arc of Osiris, open field, 1 versus 1, and should we expertise him or not. And at the end of the video, I will tell you guys if Guan Yu still a good investment in 2022 and some of my thought on him overall. Okay, so first, let's talk about DPS. How good is Guan Yu when it comes to in terms of DPS, right? So let's go back into the game and see what Guan Yu can bring to the battlefield. Okay, so in terms of DPS, Guan Yu has a very high AoE skill damage, right? You don't see that many commanders that can do 2000 AoE skill damage in a fanship area. That can hit up to 3 enemy, okay? Like 2000 damage, very high. When you compare to some of other commanders in like 1st gen, 2nd gen, right? Let's say if you compare to Saladin can deal up to 1700, but it like a single target only, right? Or Genghis Khan only 1700, only single DPS. But here we are talking about 2000 AoE skill damage, okay? Very high. So that's alone one of the very strong skill for Guan. Here's the first skill, very good. So 2000 AoE skill damage. He also coming in with so this one is for stronghold. We don't care too much about stronghold. So the third skill does give Guan Yu an additional 30% increase in attack, right? So more attack you have, more DPS you have, right? So very good amount of offensive skill here, right? First skill, third skill, very good. And let's talk about his fourth skill. Right? His fourth skill is also a very high DPS skill, okay? So when the skill Saint of War hit exactly one enemy, it has 50% chance to deal additional damage factor 1000. When the skill hit 2 or more enemy, it has 50% chance to deal an additional damage of 1400, right? So you have 50% chance to deal at least 1000 damage more to the target. So you can say 500 damage more overall in terms of DPS. So you can say that his active skill can deal up to 2500 on average, right? 2500 here. It's crazy high DPS, that high skill damage skill, right? So because Guan have very high skill damage, so like a lot of times you might be more benefit to use items that give you more skill damage, okay? Or even using the talent tree, okay? So I'll talk about the talent tree a little bit later. His expertise doesn't give, or his expertise does kind of work occasionally, can boosting up the skill damage for Guan, okay? Right, because it does give you that 15% skill damage for 3 seconds when he gain a shield. So there is no certain way for you to guarantee you to get a shield right before you casting your skill. So it doesn't give you that much of a skill damage boost, okay? So like I'm not counting this one in, but like, even with that, with just the first skill, okay, first skill, third skill, and the fourth skill, that alone gave Guan an S tier in terms of DPS. So very high skill damage and very good amount of attack increase as well. So DPS S tier. Now let's talk about utility. What can Guan bring to the battlefield to help with your team, to help with your other marches, okay? So go back into the game again. So Guan Yu first skill, right? Again, a very good skill here. Like beside being able to deal 2000 damage, it can also inflict a silent to all of the targets that the skill hit for 3 seconds. So 3 seconds silence. So like when you compare Guan silence skill with some of the other commanders strong debuff like XY, where XY have that 30% defense debuff, the 3 second silent is definitely not as good. It's definitely not as good as a minus 30% or minus 30% defense or minus 30% health. Okay, because it's situational. It has a lot to do with timing as well. Let's say if you're going to catch your skill and the enemy going to be silent for 3 seconds, but let's say if you catch that, if the enemy is silent when their rage are not ready, then that silent has no effect whatsoever on that target, right? So that is something you need to understand about the silent skill. Okay, so the silent skill has a lot to do with timing. So if the target just casts their skills and then you silence the target for 3 seconds, it has no effect. Right? It has no effect on the target, but it does help a lot in the motherboard situation. And on that, he doesn't bring anything else to the team except for that 3 second AoE silence. Even though I say it has to do with timing, but it's still a very, very good skill, especially in situation where you do like a 5v5 marches or 7 versus 7 if you have 7 marches. Can work very, very well in Sunset Cannon as well, right? Back row, or even if you want to use him front row, right? Imagine being able to casting your skill first and then silence the target, right? So like if you want to use him in Sunset Cannon front row, you gotta make sure that he can cast his skill before the one that facing you, right? So you gotta make sure that you silence the target first for 3 seconds. That gave you that advantages in terms of like skill damage, and then you might be able to perform very well, right? Sunset Cannon, mass open field. So let's go back into the rating here. So like for utility, right, even though the 3 second can work very well, but it's not as strong as some of the other commander utility. Like for example, Alex can increase the damage by 30%, right? And XY can have the debuff for 30% defense, or Sepio, the new infantry commanders, can have that strong debuff, right? So for utility, I would rate him somewhere around A or B. I'm just putting him as an A for now because silent can work pretty well in motherboard. Okay, but like it's definitely not as strong as the debuffs that have a direct effect on the march stat increase, right? So like for example, minus certain percent of defense, attack, or health, right? I think those are definitely the strongest debuff right now in the game. So let's talk about tankiness here. Is Guan tanky? Is Guan a tank? Let's go back into the game here. So out of all of his skill, the only skill that kind of like work a little bit in terms of like tankiness, survivability. I would put survivability and tankiness kind of like the same category here. So his third skill does give him a chance to get a healing factor of 1000 whenever you fight and then you pull back. But then you gotta make sure you stay out of the fight for long enough. When you find the motherboard and then you pull back, but then you get back right into the fight, the healing effect will not trigger, right? So you have to pull back just enough so that you get that report. When you find the motherboard and then you pull back, and then sometimes you got that report right away because you ended the fight. That is when this skill kick in. That is when you gain that 1000 heal. So the 1000 heal does help him stay a little bit longer on the battlefield. It doesn't help him directly when it comes to like tanking, but it does help him kind of like survive a little bit longer on the field. So I'll just put him in the same category as Tankiness here, even though he does not have any kind of a defense increase or health increase. Okay, not much here. So let's go back to the category here for Tankiness. I would give him D, but because of that 1000 heals, I'll give him a C. A C when it comes to tanking. Okay. So like something you can do to make up for his something you can do to make up for Guan Yu lack of defense, tankiness is that you can give him a lot of strong equipment, right? Equipment that give him a lot of defense. So this is usually what I run on my Guan, right? I want to run the glove, the chest piece, the helmet, a lot of defense, right? So you can help these commanders that does not have a crazy high amount of defense with better equipment, okay? So that is something you can do to make up for the lack of like tankiness. Okay, so let's go back into the game here. Mobility, right? Is Guan Yu a fast commander? Well, so Guan does come with a 15%, right? A 15% increase in march speed bonus, right? A fixed percentage increase there. It's not as fast as Alex or Charmatel, but good enough. His expertise, like that is if you expertise Guan, he also coming with that 100% march speed increase for 3 seconds whenever he leave a structure, right? So let's say if you jumping to resource nodes, then you'll get that 100% march speed increase for 3 seconds. So it does work in favor for his mobility there. So he's not a slow commander, right? He has a very good mobility, in my opinion, but not as good as some of the other commanders. So with only like a 15% march speed increase and somewhat like a little bit more mobility from that expertise skill whenever he leaves the structure, I would give him a B rating. I would give him a B rating for mobility. Okay. So B rating for mobility. Okay, so now let's talk about, is Guan Yu a good commander for Ark of Osiris? 100%, right? I think Guan is one of the must-bring commanders when it comes to the big murder ball fight in Ark of Osiris. He also have a decent mobility, right? When you combine Guan with another fast commander in Ark, they can be very fast, right? So like one of my favorite pair for Guan in Ark of Osiris is Guan and Alex, right? When you're running Guan and Alex in Ark of Osiris, you're going to get the 15% march speed increase from Guan and the 30% march speed increase from Alex, which is a total of 45% march speed increase. A very high mobilized march for me. One of my favorite pair when it comes to Ark of Osiris. So he worked very well. Worked very well in Murderball, and he's pre-mobilized, right? Pre-mobilized when it comes to march speed increase. So I would definitely give him a S tier, right? Definitely an S tier commander when it comes to Ark of Osiris. For open field, right? Against, right? Very similar to Ark of Osiris. Very good amount of like AoE skill damage. And can deal a crazy amount of like DPS in Murderball as well. So I would definitely give him an S tier as well when it comes to open field fighting, right? So in a 1v1 situation, like for 1v1 situation, I think Guan can work very well as well, right? Because of his DPS, he have very high DPS. Right, Guan has crazy high DPS alone. Just the first skill and the fourth skill alone that gave you a very high amount of skill damage here, right? And if you get lucky, you can deal 3,000 damage back to back for like 1, 2, 3 turn. That can give him that advantages when it comes to like a 1v1 fight. Okay, if the fourth skill kick in consistently every time you're casting your skill, you can deal a very high chunk of damage to the target. And one of the reason why when it comes to like commander testing, a lot of time using Guan for testing 1v1 is not very accurate because of this skill right here, right? You don't know when this skill going to kick in. Sometimes it kick in back to back, and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so that is sometimes you need to keep in mind when it comes to like 1v1 commander testing, right? RNG factor a lot in the fourth skill. Okay, he does have enough attack here. But like when it comes to like 1v1 fight, you're not gonna be able to utilize on the fighting factor here, which is like the healing factor 1000, because you cannot pull away, right? You just stay at one spot fighting, and you cannot utilize on the 1000 heal. Okay, so that is something you also have to keep in mind as well. So let's go back to the rating here. So like I would get him like an S rating, either S or A rating on 1v1. But I think he's a very good commander for 1v1 because he have very high DPS. Okay. So expertise. Is it good? Is it good to expertise Guan? Okay, or do you have to expertise Guan? The answer is no. Okay. Guan is definitely not one of the commanders you must expertise, especially if you only care about the open field. So let's go back into the game here, right? If you're looking at Guan expertise skill, so Guan expertise skill require him to receive a shield, which is you cannot guarantee yourself to receive a shield. And if you're using some of the commanders as secondary like Alex or Chormatel, you're going to gain that shield after you cast all of your skills, and the 50% skill damage increase kind of like useless, in my opinion. So you need to use some of the item like the lucky coin, okay? So you have to use some of the item like the lucky coin for you to utilize on that expertise, right? And if you're not planning to craft the lucky coin, then you don't need the expertise, okay? And the march speed increase when he leaving the structure is not a must-have, right? You probably don't see yourself jumping to the structure a lot, okay? So his expertise is not a must-have, and one of his skill is the second skill has to do with a rallying, right? And if you don't use him for rallying, then you don't need his expertise, okay? The only reason you want to expertise him is if you're going to need all of his 4 skill here. Let's say you're going to need his first, second, and third 4 skill, right? For myself, I do not need his second skill, right? The only reason I expertise Guan is because I did it before the skill reset come out, okay? So nowadays, you know that you can reset the skill, right? Something called the reset skill here. You can try to reset him. I mean, like 5155, if you can get 1 to 5155, you are extremely lucky, okay? Otherwise, I would definitely settle for like a 5255 or like a 5355. You can save like 160 or like 200 sculpture on him if you can get him to like 5255 or 5355, okay? But like it's definitely not a must expertise commander, right? As I mentioned before, the only reason I got his second skill up to level 5 is because when I tried to level him up, I got like all of my skill just go to the second skill straight up, and I did not have a skill reset back then when I have him, right? The skill reset will introduce after I expertise Guan, right? Lilith play with me, you know. Anyways, so definitely not a must-have expertise commander. So now let's talk about a little bit about the equipment choice that you can use on Guan. As I mentioned before, right? Guan is definitely not a tanky commander. So you want to give him a lot of defense, a lot of like items that give him more defense, more health increase. And if you could, you can use the lucky coin on him as well. I cannot equip the lucky coin on him right now because I am not in Season of Conquest yet. But when I go back to Season of Conquest, I would definitely put the coin back on him. Right, you could go for the shield, Eternal Empire, if you want. Other than that, you can just focus on for Guan, I would definitely focusing on getting the helmet first, the Hope Glove first if you can, the glove for the legendary equipment, and also one of the piece here for the infantry here, right? So you're going to get that 4 infantry set that give you very high amount of defense, and the extra 10% march speed increase as well. If you can manage to get that 4-piece set, right? So you're going to give your Guan more mobility, more defense, okay? The shield weapon is optional, depend on if you want to give him more attack or not, okay? It is totally up to you guys. But I would strongly recommend getting the other 4 pieces first. Actually, you need the weapon, okay? Actually, you need the weapon for that 4-piece set. Okay, my mistake. But you can get it last, okay? So in order for you to get the 4 pieces set bonus, you're going to need the weapon for that 10% mobility, okay? So you're going to get 1 piece from helmet. First 1, 2 is the weapon, 3P is the glove and the 4P is the boots here, right? So you can go with that 4P set if you want to get that 10% march speed increase, especially for arc player. You're going to need the 4P set. Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now. For arc player, you're going to need the 4P sets. Alright, so that is something to do with the equipment. What about the talent tree? Right? What can you do with talent tree for Guan? Okay, so for Guan, you can go with something like this one right here. Okay, so I am currently running a max infantry build on my Guan because I just like a little bit more stat increase on him, and because most of the time I run Guan with Alex, so I don't benefit a lot from the skill talent tree. Okay, but let's say if you're going to run another commander that can deal very high skill damage, then you might want to go with the max rage build. Okay, the max rage build can work very well if you're going to have a two very high skill damage commander. For example, let's say if you're going to run Guan and C build, you definitely want to go with the max rage build. Okay, or you can go with the hybrid. Okay, so you want like a more like a hybrid skill here. So the hybrid skill, you're going a little bit more on, you're going to rejuvenate, you're going to get the clarity to get that skill damage increase whenever you're casting your skill, so it can boosting up your skill damage overall. You still gain the tankiness from the infantry talent, you still get the tankiness from the infantry tree, and you still want to get the mobility from the infantry tree as well. So here I am getting the 12% infantry march speed increase, a little bit more buckle shield here for the tankiness, kind of needed for Guan. But you missing out on that feral nature, right? So this build, I would recommend this build if you have like a Horn of Fury. If you have like a Horn of Fury on your Guan, then maybe you can go with the hybrid build. So you can get more skill damage. You don't need too much rage. And buckle shield. Okay, gang zit one here. You can switch around, right? The max rage, I would say the max rage build is definitely work very well in like a murder boss situation, in Sunset Canyon where you don't need mobility, but like in like for Ark of Osiris, you kind of need that march speed increase, right? The march speed increase is I can't tell you guys how important it is for Ark, right? So for myself, I want to be good. I want to be able to play well in Ark of Osiris, but at the same time, I also want to be able to play well in open field fighting, right? And I don't have that many reset skill here, right? To keep switching. Oh, when I play Ark, I switch back to the infantry talent build, and when I play in KvK, I switch back to the max rage build. Okay, so I'm trying to go with like what can work best, and I think the hybrid build might work best in most of the situation. I think because it does have that march speed increase, right? It does have that skill damage increase. Okay. The only reason I'm going with the current build right now is it because I feel like maybe I need more stat increase overall for Guan, especially the 2.5% defense and 2.5% health. Can help him a little bit more tankiness, right? So that is the reason why I am going with more like survivability than more DPS. But I think the hybrid build, I might switch back to the hybrid build. The hybrid build I think might be a little bit better because of more skill damage. Skill damage here. The hybrid build gives you that 6% more skill damage whenever you cast your skill, but then you have to cast your skill, right? Like the downside is that when you're running in the motherboard or when you're just standing around, you don't get that stat increase, right? When you're going with the max infantry build, you getting that stat increase all the time, right? 2.5% defense, 2.5%, 2.5% defense, 2.5% health, and 2.5% attack, which is a lot. And it can help you survive a little bit longer in the murder boss situation because of that additional stat increase. And it also gives you that chances to slow down the target as well. It can help you slow infantry marches chasing after the enemy sometime. Okay. So that is the bonus side. That is the bonus point for going with the max infantry build. But like if you focus a little bit more on sunset cannon, I would strongly recommend you guys to go with the rage build, the max rage build here. So it depends on what you guys want to do with your Guan, to be honest. And if you like someone like myself who do not have a lot of like skill reset, talent reset to keep to just, oh no, oh this one is, oh my god, oh I reset it by accident here. Anyway, I will go show you guys how much skill reset I have, a talent reset I have. So if you don't want to like switch your build around back and forth, then you might want to go with one build that can work for most of the situation, right? So for me, I'm going with this one because it just worked well for me in Ark of Osiris as well in KvK. Yeah, so that's the reason why. So let's go back to the final rating here, okay, for Guan. So for Guan, okay. So the final rating for Guan is DPS is S, utility is A, tankiness is C, mobility is B, Ark of Osiris is S, open field S tier, 1 versus 1 is S tier, and expertise is you do not need him. So you might be wondering, okay, so like how come like Guan have so many S tier here, even though he doesn't have that many S tier for like utility, tankiness, and mobility? The reason is that because you can make up if you have the good equipment, right? If you have the good equipment on Guan, he's gonna be S tier. Okay, with the right equipment on Guan, you can make up for that tankiness. You can make up for that lack of tankiness. You can make up for that lack of mobility with the right equipment. That will bring him to the S tier. That will bring him to what you need to perform well in Ark of Osiris, open field fighting, and 1v1 situation, guys, right? So is Guan still a good investment in 2022? The answer is 100% yes. 100%, right? I would say Guan is definitely right now is definitely one of the commanders that I will get in first or second, okay? I definitely want to use Sapio for a bit before I can make the right call here, but Guan is 100% still a very, very good investment. And against, right, because he one of the commanders that you do not need to expertise, very, very economical for you guys to invest on him, right? And if you get lucky, right, right, try to get him at 5 something 5, okay? That is when you can optimize on the cost, like how much you had to invest in him for the return on investment, I would say. And the minimal requirement for Guan is very cheap as well, right? For me, minimal requirement for Guan is 5 1-on-1. If you get Guan to like 5 1-on-1, you can replace a lot of the epic commanders, right? And you can start using him right away because his first skill is super strong. 2 talents AoE skill damage and 3 seconds silent is just crazy good, guys. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys find this video helpful and can help you decide on either to invest on Guan or not, or either you should be expertise on him. Okay, guys? Thanks for watching the videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.